What's up everyone, welcome back to another FPL video. We are a week and a half away from the start of the Premier League season and I'm going to show you my latest draft. What's up everyone, welcome back to another video. Again, I hope you are all well and had a nice weekend. We are now into the final stretch before the season starts. We really need to be deciding on our teams because we are a week and a half away from the start of the Premier League season. It starts next Friday, so really time to start cracking down on our teams, making those final big decisions about who we want to own. So as I mentioned, today we're going to have a look at my latest Gameweek 1 draft, the players I've got in there. We'll have a look at the transfers I've made, what formation and everything like that I'm thinking of playing for Gameweek 1. Just before we do, we're trying to hit 10,000 subs by the start of the season, so if you could smash that subscribe button before we get going, that would be much appreciated. But going straight into it, we start with Bachmann and Foster in goal. So the Watford combination of goalkeepers we've got in my team at the moment. It was originally Sanchez that I had in goal. However, there have been a couple of potential injuries in the defence and I really like Watford's defence. I've looked into it quite a lot and last season they were very strong defensively, particularly at the start of the season, and they have a very nice run of fixtures to start the season as well. So definitely thinking that Bachmann Foster is a good pair to have because it means I've got both the first goalkeeper and the backup goalkeeper. If anything happens to Bachmann, I know that I've got the second choice goalkeeper, so I won't be left with no playing goalkeeper as well. So it is a really nice combination to have. And as I've said, they're good defensively and they showed it in the Championship. And newly promoted teams, their goalkeepers often make quite a lot of saves as well. So even if the clean sheets aren't there, hopefully some save points as well for Bachmann. Moving into the defence, the first defender we've got in my team at the moment is Luke Shaw, who continues to stay in my team. 5.5 million, should be back in time for the start of the season. A few question marks about his fitness, but if he's anywhere near fit, he'll be in my starting team. The starting fixtures for Manchester United are okay. They're not brilliant, but Shaw has both that clean sheet potential as well as that attacking threat that we've seen when he gets up and down that left hand side, both, you know, putting crosses into the box but also that goal potential as well. So 5.5 million for Shaw I think is a really nice price. I expect him to just see price increases as the season goes on. I think he'll perform very well, so happy to start the season with him given their Man U start to the season. Next up, we have a new signing into my team. He's been in my thinking a lot of the time, but I've never quite found a place for him in my team, and that is Lucas Digne, priced at 5.5 million. So another 5.5 million defender to combine with Luke Shaw. I really like Everton's start to the season. They rank first for the best fixture run for the start of the season, so straight away that's a great thing to have for a defender because easier games more than often means more clean sheets. They were particularly good away from home defensively last season, Everton, and potentially with fans back they combine that with a bit more home form, then Digne at 5.5 million could be a really nice option. We're not quite sure whether Benitez will go with a 4 or 5 at the back system, so whether Digne will be playing the normal left back or at the left wing back role, but either of them, to be honest, he'll be on some set pieces. We know how far forward he can get up that left hand side, putting crosses into the box for Calvert-Lewin. So Digne is definitely in my team at 5.5 million. Next up, we have a Leeds defender in Ayling. Now, I don't love Ayling as a pick the more time goes on. I think he has potential throughout this season to be a good option, but I don't love the Leeds fixtures to start, and we'll potentially get onto some of them as midfielders and whether I've owned them or not later on. But Ayling at 4.5 million is a player that is in there as a placeholder at the moment as my 4.5 option, but I don't quite love their start to the season as much as I potentially hope. It's just that Leeds were good defensively at the end of last season, and Ayling has a little bit of attacking threat that he can add on top of that clean sheet potential. So he'll probably be on my bench most weeks, Ayling, but we know that he can combine quite a few routes to points. Next up in the defence, of course, is Trent, one of the most highly owned players in the game so far. If you don't own him and you're going with no Liverpool defence, I would be slightly concerned going into the start of the season. Trent has a lot to offer, a lot of points, both from assists, goals, clean sheets as well. There's so many routes to point for him, which makes him such an appealing asset. 7.5 million is a lot to spend on him. It always is a lot to spend on him, but 9 times out of 10, I think he'll repay it. If you compare him to other players in midfield and up front at a similar price, I think that he has the potential to be the highest scoring player of his price range, so I'm more than happy to own it. And Liverpool have such a nice start to the season, Norwich on the opening day and then a great sort of first 6 fixtures as well, so very happy to have Trent in my team. And finally, we have another new signing coming to my team in Dunk. So this was originally Lamptey of Brighton, then it went to Sanchez in goal, then it was Veltman in the defence, and now I've gone with Dunk here. Now 5.0 may seem a bit of a stretch, however, Brighton have a really nice start to the season. They're very good defensively as well, so I think a Brighton defender is a really good option. And then Dunk definitely has the most attacking threat out of all the Brighton defenders and out of a lot of the defenders at that price as well. 5.0 for Dunk is a really nice option. I think it's worth it over the 0.5 that you gain by saving on Veltman, for example. He has some set pieces, direct free kicks he often takes, as well as having his sort of header ability from corners as well and free kicks like that. So 5.0, he's currently in there. If I needed to save 0.5, I could easily downgrade Dunk to a 4.5 option. However, at the moment, Dunk is definitely in my starting team. So that's my defence. It's quite premium, as you may have known. I think it's a lot more money than other people are spending on their defence. However, I often go with a 4 at the back system to start my season. So Shaw, Dean, Trent and Dunk can play for me almost every week, with Ayling making up the bench. Moving on to the midfield, the first option we have still in my team is Bruno Fernandes. So at the moment he's in there. There is potential that I don't go into the game week 1 with him, depending on what happens with Harry Kane, for example, whether he goes to Manchester City or he stays at Tottenham. I could go for someone like Son, Sancho as well to save some money. But at the moment, Fernandes is in. I think at 12 million, it's a nice price. We know what he can do, both from penalties and then from open play with assists and goals as well. He had the number 1 scoring player in FPL last season. The big thing for me is he's a great captaincy option. He's so reliable. He just plays every single week and he's so consistent with points. So I'd more than happily put the armband on Fernandes no matter who he's playing against if I had to, if none of my options were appealing. So it's nice to have that reliable option in my team, even at 12 million. I can see a lot of people opting for Sancho. He's not in my draft at the moment. I would probably stay clear of him personally. I think Fernandes at 12 million, or if I went for a cheaper midfielder, I'd go with Greenwood. For me, Sancho's stuck in that middle ground of price ranges that I don't quite know what to do with him. So I'd either go Greenwood or Fernandes for me, and Sancho is not someone currently in my thinking. Just before we get on, make sure to join that league code. There are prizes every single month to be given away, so make sure you join that. There's a link in the description which will automatically join you if you don't want to use that code there. Now, next up, of course, is Mo Salah, the number 1 potentially FPL asset, the most owned player in the game at the moment. 12.5 is a lot to pay for him, of course, but I think we've seen in previous seasons that most of the time it's worth paying. He had a little bit of a cold patch at Christmas last season, but most of the time, Salah at 12.5 is just a great option. He's a good captaincy option for about 5 of the first 6 game weeks, so he will be my captain game week 1 unless something drastically changes, and I'm more than happy to captain him almost every week as well. Given how well Liverpool and Salah ended last season, let's hope that they can bring that form into the start of the season, but Salah has had a full pre-season rest as well. I think 12.5, you're a braver person than me to go into the start of the season without Salah. Of course, if you don't want him and you're going somewhere else, fair play to you. But yeah, I think he's a great option and is pretty much the first name on every single draft that I make. Next up, we have Jota to complete my Liverpool triple up. So previously, I didn't have a Liverpool triple up and then I potentially had Robertson in defence, but I have added Jota. Now, straight away, before the comments fill up with Jota won't get that many minutes, I understand that, and I do realise that Jota might not start each and every game. However, Firmino is at the Olympics, and so will likely have a delayed start to the season, which will mean Jota will likely play at least the first 3 games. And even when he doesn't start, that attacking threat is always there. He comes off the bench, he gets goals and assists against high defences. So I don't think he's a great pick for the duration of the season. However, if you can pick pockets of game weeks where you think Jota is going to get a lot of minutes, then I think he's a really nice option. So Jota comes in at 7.5 million. It's a really nice price for him. I think in those pockets of fixtures where he does very well and gets a run in the team, he'll be very undervalued. So at 7.5, given I think he'll start the season pretty well, he's definitely in my draft and a player I think is very explosive. If he does start very well, a lot of people will be looking to bring him in as well. So hopefully I can get ahead of the curve on Jota there. Next up, we complete my midfield with 2 4.5 midfielders in Brownhill and Gibbs-White. Now, both of these have shown really good goal-scoring potential in pre-season. Gibbs-White scored on Sunday and Brownhill scored twice last week in a Burnley pre-season friendly. Now, I don't plan on starting either of these in my team pretty much any week at all. However, they are just solid options to have on my bench if I ever had to bring them in. They play for their teams both in attacking positions. Brownhill is nailed. He plays every week for Burnley. Gibbs White's a little bit more up in the air, but if he does continue to play the role we've seen at times throughout pre-season, then again, could be a great option. It's just given me that little bit more of a strength in depth that allows me to both have a really nice starting 11 and a strong bench without actually having to invest that much in my bench as well. So if I play a 4-3-3, which is my plan at the moment, we'll get onto my forwards in just a second, but having Ayling, Gibbs White and Brownhill on my bench, it's a strong bench without me spending very much money on it. So if there is COVID outbreaks or anything like that, then I still think I'm pretty well set to try and deal with it. So Gibbs White and Brownhill complete my midfield, but Fernandes, Salah and Jota, the real three talking points there. Moving into my forward line, the first one we have is Calvert-Lewin. So as I mentioned with Luca Dean, he gets up the left-hand side and puts the crosses into the box, and I expect him to get some assists. But if I'm expecting Luca Dean to get assists, then I'm expecting Calvert-Lewin to get goals, because 8 times out of 10, Luca Dean is crossing the ball for Calvert-Lewin to head into the back of the net. So I like the combination of the two. They have a great fixtures to start the season, so I can pretty much put them both in my team and not really have to worry about them. They play every week. They don't get rotated at all. So unless there's an injury or Everton come out into the season very differently to as we expect them to, then I think for the first sort of 6-10 game weeks, they're very happy to just set and forget in my team every week. I always say, pick reliable players who start in your team every week. You'll need your transfers so much at the start of the season. Don't go picking rotation-prone players or players that you expect to have to use a transfer on. So Dean and DCL are two players that hopefully fit that bill and can start the season well for me. Next up in my forward line, we have Ivan Toney of Brentford, the only sort of new signing, new player to the league that I've got, promoted player, anything like that. Toney at 6.5, I just really like his price. If he was in line with the likes of Calvert-Lewin and Bamford and Watkins, if he was the same price as all as them, I wouldn't be owning Toney in my team. But it's just the fact that he's the best striker at that price that I can see at the moment, and it saves me $1 million going over any of those other forwards. So he did so well in the Championship last season, the top goal scorer, Brentford's highest scorer, everything like that. Brentford's player of the season, got 0.9 attacking returns per game, so almost an attacking return every single game, which is crazy. Even if he gets half the amount this season as he did last season, then I think he's got potential to be one of the best forwards for us to own this season. There aren't that many other forwards, as I mentioned, really competing at that price range either. Last season we had so many, Watkins, Chris Wood, Bamford, all coming in at a similar price, but there's no one really that I think I would prefer to own than Toney, so it does help me free up a little bit of money to spend elsewhere. 6.5 million, I just think is a great price for him. They have an okay start to the season, but Brentford score a lot of goals. Toney's on penalties for them as well. I just think it's too good to turn down. The final forward for me is Ollie Watkins, who comes priced at 7.5 million. Aston Villa have probably the 3 best opening fixtures that you could ask for. So I did potentially go for Buendia in midfield. I was thinking about Jack Grealish, but it looks like he's off to Manchester City. He may even be by the time this video goes up. So Watkins is sort of that focal point of the attack. Even with Grealish out, I still expect them to create a fair amount of chances, whether it's Bailey who comes in to replace Grealish, whether it's Buendia creating them for Watkins, I still expect him to be the number one sort of goal threat within that Aston Villa team. The longer he spends in the league, the more sort of accustomed he's going to become to it, the better understanding he's going to get. But he had a pretty good first season, so even if he sort of just matches that, I still think it's a great option at 7.5 million. The more time they spent at the latter end of last season playing without Grealish because of his injury means I think even with him potentially going to Manchester City, they'll have a better understanding of how to play without him. So it's just for that first 3. I may look to sell him after that, but I can't afford to not go into it, knowing what the Aston Villa attack is capable of, knowing what Watkins, Buendia, Grealish could all do if they are all starting. So Watkins, 7.5 million. He did have a bit of a price rise from last season, but I still think that he's a really nice option to own. So moving on to my captaincy and my bench and what I think it will be like. So Salah, my captain, away to Norwich in Gameweek 1, with Fernandes playing Leeds in Gameweek 1 coming in as my vice captain. I think that I'm pretty happy with that. I don't expect that to change unless, as I said, there's an injury or something like that. And my bench at the moment will be Foster, Ayling, Brownhill, Gibbs-White. Not that much money spent, as I mentioned, but it still gives me a lot of depth down there. So I'm pretty happy with how this team is shaping up. I think there are a lot less changes being made every time I go to make a draft. So I'm pretty happy with this here, but there are still a few tinkers which need to be made come the start of the season. So just quickly rattling through the transfers I made and why I've sold the players that I have. The first one is I've sold Robertson to Dean. So part of this is I need a Jota in my team, but I think Dean offers a lot at the start of the season. It's 5.5 million. It saves me 1.5. They have a great set of opening fixtures and Dean has as much attacking threat as Robertson does. So I think that sort of combination that I've gone with now with Dean and Jota is more preferable than I have Robertson. I think it was Rafinha who was in my team before. So I prefer the combination that I've got. On reflection, just looking at the two of them, I'd probably go Robertson over Dean, but that money that I can spend elsewhere, I definitely like. So that has allowed me to do, as I said, Rafinha up to Jota. So it's a combination of Dean and Jota or Rafinha and Robertson for me, and I'm pretty happy with going Dean and Jota, given that Firmino is unlikely to be back for the start of the season. Elsewhere, I've upgraded Aït-Nouri to Dunk, so Aït-Nouri hasn't played every game in pre-season, which makes me slightly concerned, and I don't want rotation-prone players in my starting 11, and Dunk has great fixtures, good attacking threat, and clean sheet potential as well. 5 million, 0.5 more than me wanting to spend on a Brighton defender, but I'm hoping that he can make it worth it. In order to free up that 0.5, I sold Danny Ings and downgraded him to Watkins. I think Ings is a nice option. He's the most clinical striker in the league outside of Harry Kane probably, but we just don't know where he's going to be playing. He's very injury prone as well. So Watkins' first three made it quite an easy transfer. I needed that 0.5 million. So I've gone with Watkins, and that is that in terms of my third forward. Sanchez to Backman has happened again because I've gone with Dunk in defence, which has mean I don't want a double Brighton defence with a goalkeeper and Dunk as well. So I have gone Sanchez to Backman. Watford have been very good defensively in the Championship, particularly at home, as I've said a few times. So very happy with him and hopefully some save points as well as clean sheets to start the season. And the final change is something very small. I just changed my 4.5 midfielder from Gilmour into Gibbs-White. So this is how the team lines up at the moment. I do have 0.5 million in the bank, so I could use that upgrading someone like Dunk to another 5.5 defender, Ayling up to someone, or spending it on another forward, for example. However, I think it's a great tactic to go into the start of the season with 0.5 in the bank if you are capable of doing that. So that's how I lined up. Let me know in the comments what you think of my team. Any questions about your team, do let me know in the comments down below. Just before we wrap up, I would really appreciate a little bit of feedback. I'm putting a lot of work both into my thumbnail design as well as the graphics that I use within my videos. So if you could just let me know what you think of it, if you think there's anything I can improve, I'm really open to suggestions. I'm trying to make it as good a viewing experience for you all as I possibly could. But just a reminder that there will be a video and or live stream every day between now and the start of the season to hopefully give you the best team you can, get you off to the best start in your Fantasy Premier League season. So if you have enjoyed, please hit that subscribe button as we go as close to 10k by the start of the season. And like, of course, if you want to help me grow to other people who aren't subscribed as well, please hit that like button. But that's all we've got time for. I hope you have enjoyed and I will see you all very soon.